Have you ever been in this situation where you jump the window and you still get hit, so you blame it on the game or lag? Well, there is a reason for that hit, and that's because it was a medium vault. There are three types of vaults that you can do on Windows: slow vault, medium vault, and fast vault. And all of them have their own properties and ways to activate. A slow vault happens when you interact with a window while not pressing the running input. This can happen at any angle and will not produce any loud sound for the killer to hear. Good survivors will use that to confuse killers when they lose their line of sight, as most killers do not expect a survivor to slow vault while in a chase. Another example is the spirit, who can be easily countered by slow vaulting a window. A slow vault takes 1.5 seconds to finish. A fast vault will only happen when you interact with a window while holding the running input and, this is very important, you come in a correct angle towards the window, because if you don't, then your fast vault will become a medium vault. There is a high chance you never notice the prompt changing to running vault once you are able to do one. There are some windows where a fast vault is difficult to perform, and only expert survivors are able to get the angle and timing right for them. Some examples include the Dead Dog Saloon window or the Ironworks of Misery one from the outside. Most survivors will perform a medium vault on these windows. Medium vaults take a longer time to perform than a fast vault, and you will also lose all your momentum while you're doing it. That loss of momentum is enough for the killer to hit you, especially if they are experienced ones, because a killer's attack is extended through some walls. And this is a very important tip to know. Killers are and will be able to hit through small fences, windows, and small obstacles due to this same hitbox that makes medium vault hits possible. That's essentially how Deathslinger's power attacks are possible, as they are also basic attacks. These are examples of spots that I have used to attack survivors on my matches. So if you are a killer main, you can use them to your advantage, and if you are a survivor main, stay at a safe distance from these. One of the tips that will help you the most by far is playing both sides, which I believe is crucial to learn how to be the best at the game. If you don't want to, then another way you can do this is by watching videos of streams and learn from them. And another thing that is very helpful is watching your own replays and learning from your own mistakes, from what you could have done better for the next time you play, especially if you are a content creator. And for that same reason, I would like to present to you the sponsor of today's video, Sizzle.gg. Sizzle is a website that allows you to automatically download and watch your own best highlights for free with no software required. Sizzle.gg saves you money and time by automatically picking the best parts of your streams from YouTube or Twitch and turning them into clips and compilation for games such as Dead by Daylight, and also Valorant, Fortnite, Free Fire, Apex Legends, and more. This website is especially useful if you're a content creator and you have no time due to work or school, or not enough income to pay for editors to watch hours and hours of VODs to make clips to upload for YouTube. So if you're already streaming Dead by Daylight on your PC or console, why not try this free website to get some videos ready to diversify your reach in content creation. Sizzle.gg is also hosting a giveaway for a prize of $30 given through PayPal to 3 random users that make an account now. So if you are interested, then be sure to check the website down below with my link and create a free account to be able to enter in the draft. Thank you Sizzle for sponsoring this video. So now that we talked about mistakes and windows and their hitbox, let's talk about pallets, the second interactable that will help you in chases. While the game never specifies this, there are two types of pallets in the game, unsafe and safe pallets, and knowing the difference between these two is crucial. A safe pallet, or another word for it is a god pallet, is a pallet that has zero counterplay by the killer, meaning that once that pallet is used, the killer has to break it and they cannot go around it in any way. These pallets will guarantee that you make some distance from the killer and are really easy to use, and most maps will have one god pallet at the very least. The most popular one is the Shack pallet, as that is one of the strongest pallets in the entire game. Other great examples of god pallets include some pallets of Midwich, the pallets inside the Asylum, RPD, and almost all of the pallets in the game. An unsafe pallet are those where you are not guaranteed of being safe even if the pallet is thrown down, and the killer can hit you if you play it wrong. The majority of the pallets in the game are unsafe, but some of them are more unsafe than others. Some of the best examples of really unsafe pallets are the one in the safe room in RPD and the one in the Temple of Purgation's underground. However, most of the pallets in the game have two sides to them in a loop, one long side and a short one. As a survivor, you always have to loop a pallet from the long side instead of the short one. The side in which you loop the pallet can turn a very weak one into a very strong one. Looping the correct side of a pallet loop is important, but another very important thing that makes a massive difference is to loop it as tight as possible in order to cut all of the possible corners you can. Most of the killers walk with a speed of 4.6 meters per second, and survivors walk with a speed of 4 meters per second. And while you are looping a structure, that difference is massive and will make killers catch you up very fast. However, you can mitigate that by looping very tightly, and this makes a huge difference between bad and good survivors. Every inch that you cut adds up, and it can mean the difference between one extra loop or avoiding a hit. But I know what happens. You try to apply this to your own games and you end up getting stuck in some weird hook or rubble. So this next tip is something you need to practice a lot if this is happening to you. Use your camera well. The amount of survivors I have chased that don't look back and just run straight, and the amount of survivors that only look back and then they get stuck in a dead end wasting the sprint burst they get after getting hit is way too much. If you want to become a good survivor, you have to find the balance between looking back and looking to the front. You need to look to the front to know where you are headed, to not get stuck into any dead ends, and to plan your route and know where you're going to go next. But you also need to look back to know if the killer is close or not for a hit, if the killer is still chasing you, if they are going to use their power in some way, and most importantly, what route they are going to take in the case they want to cut you off. The best way to learn and start to look both ways is to do it bit by bit. If you look more to the front, try to look back sometimes in places that you already memorized so you don't accidentally get stuck. If you look more back than in the front, then make sure to check the front first before you start moving, and periodically check the front every time you make a turn or you pass a structure. The more you start doing this, the faster you will find the sweet spot and you will start to look to the front and to the back. The most powerful perks that survivors run are the Exhaustion perks, and identifying what Exhaustion perk the survivor is running is very important. There are 7 main Exhaustion perks in Dead by Daylight, and survivors can only use one of them in a single chase. A mistake I see a lot of people do is waiting out the Dead Heart, which is one of the 7 Exhaustion perks that protects you from a killer hit if you time it right. For that same reason, a lot of killers do not lunge attack and they wait until they get very close to the survivors. But there is no need for that. You don't have to be scared to attack a survivor if you know they are running a different type of Exhaustion perk. Sprint Burst is the easiest perk to use and know when a survivor is running it. If you are coming close to a survivor and you see that they are still walking like they are waiting for you to come even closer, then it's most likely that they are running Sprint Burst. Sprint Burst only works at the start of the chase, so if a survivor has it, do not attack them at the start of the chase and wait for them to use Sprint Burst. Lithe is another very popular Exhaustion perk. This perk works just like Sprint Burst, but it only activates in a chase and when the survivor vaults a window or a pallet. If you know the survivor has Lithe, remember that they will try to prioritize vaulting a window or a pallet rather than staying in the same loop, so try to hit them or block access of the window and you can get a really easy hit on them. Balanced landing only activates when the survivor falls from a height, like a cliff. A trick to know if the survivor is using balanced landing is to hear if they make a sound while falling. Survivors by default are scared of heights and will make a sound that killers can hear while in a chase. If a survivor has balanced landing, this sound is muted, which immediately means the survivor has the perk. Most of the times, heights are very bad for survivors as they suffer from a stagger effect when they fall. Killers can take advantage of this and reach you faster. Head On is a stun perk that only activates when a survivor is inside a locker for 3 seconds. After that, the survivors can jump out of the locker to stun the killer. Once you identify a survivor that has this perk, be careful around lockers. Most of the survivors that have Head On also have another perk called Quick and Quiet, and the combination of these two makes it so that they can stun you and avoid the loud sound effect when entering a locker, making it completely silent. A trick that you can do is bait the Head On by walking to the locker and backing up at the last second. If the survivor falls for this trick, you can hit them very easily. Overcome and Smash Hit are two very obscure perks that most of the survivors will not use, but in any case I will talk about them to have a complete guide. Overcome only activates when you are healthy and you get a hit, and in paper it sounds good, but in practice it's a very bad perk. If you attack a survivor and you see that survivor walking past very far away, they have Overcome, and keeping them injured at all times will counter that perk constantly. Smash Hit is a sprint burst that activates once a survivor stuns the killer. It's very situational, and again, if you see the survivor disappear after hitting you with a pallet, they most likely have Smash Hit. So after all of this, if you identify that the survivor does not have any of these perks, most likely they have Death Heart. Survivors with Death Heart can only use it to time a killer's attack in order to tank it. As a killer, the only option you have is to come very close to the survivor in order to attack, so they cannot predict the basic attack. Death Heart plays an animation of the survivor dabbing, so if you see a survivor doing this animation close to you, that means they just used Death Heart, and you can safely attack them. Death Heart cannot be used while the survivor is in deep wounds, so if you see a survivor that is in deep wounds, you don't have to worry about Death Heart at all. This was a very long tip, but an important one. So to finish out the video, let's talk about some small tips that will help you improve a lot. And if you found this useful, make sure to like this video. Survivors cannot cancel their vault animations once they start doing it, so since they are locked in their animation, killers can attack you very easily. For this same reason, a lot of survivors will try to fake the vault in order to bait an attack. But there is a way to know when the survivor is going to vault and when they are not, and that is if the survivors have an item. If a survivor starts to vault, the item they hold disappears temporarily, so keep an eye out for this trick and you might be able to predict and get some nice hits on survivors. Do not waste your time after hitting a survivor with a basic attack. Killers are locked into an animation after they successfully hit a survivor where they move very slowly. Why not take the opportunity while you're in this animation and check out your surroundings? For example, you might catch a survivor doing a generator or trying to hide from you in a bad spot. As a killer, multitasking is one of the most important skills as you need to absorb as much information as you can. Do not have a tunnel vision against one survivor. Remember that a survivor working on a generator is the major priority you can have. Something that I don't see a lot of killers taking into account is the side from which you break a pallet. Sometimes you can zone a survivor in an unfavorable spot while you take your time to break a pallet. Take for example this situation in Midwich. If you break the pallet from outside, the survivor has easy access to the exit room and go for another pallet. If you break the pallet from inside, however, the survivors are stuck in the room and they will have to move more predictably. Another quick tip to not lose as much distance against survivors is to lunge attack during a fall in order to reach it faster. When you're falling as a killer, you lose control of where you want to go and you will drop down most of the time. So if you attack before you drop down, you will make some distance that you will compensate either way, and this is especially powerful when you remember the fact that survivors have a stagger effect when they fall, making this tip more efficient. And as a final tip for both sides, remember that every single killer in this game is different, so some of the tips will not apply to others, and each killer has a different chase dynamic compared to others. How an Oni plays is completely different as to how a Trickster does, so the most important tip is learn how to play each killer, watch other people play as and against each killer, or watch your own matches to learn what you could have done better against a specific killer. If you are interested in me making a full video explaining every killer and how to play against them, then make sure to like this one and leave a comment to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.